So they're starting to speak now. Your leaders in various parts of the country, that was Esther. Ken Lusaka also has something to say.
Shukuru pia party leader wangu Mheshimiwa Senator Wetangula ambaye tumeandamana tangu asubuhi kuhakikisha kwamba kampeni yetu iliendelea vizuri. Ametupa support ya kutosha kama chama, na nina hakika kwamba kufikia saa 3 ya usiku tutakuwa tumeingia kwenye viti kuweza kuendesha masuala ya kaunti yetu ya Bungoma, kuirejesha mahali iko. Niwashukuru na niwaombe kura zenu wale wanaendelea kutupigia kura. Nishukuru familia yangu, mke wangu Dr. Margaret ambaye yuko hapa na kijana wangu ambaye yuko hapa, na mheshimiwa wangu Didmas Barasa ambaye pia amekuwa mwenye msaada sana katika eneo hili la Kimilili, na tuna hakika tunaenda kufaulu.
We stay in the same area, not so far off. Here's Wetangula.
Kitambulisho chako, alafu msimamizi wa hiyo kituo cha kupiga kura anaandika report ya kwamba kuna mpiga kura fulani hajaonekana kwa Kimskit, na tumechukua kipande yake na tumeona kwamba yeye ni mtu ya kupiga kura hapa, na hiyo report itamkubalia kupiga kura. That is part of the law. So hakuna wasiwasi. I just want to cap what my governor has said, that we have had a good fight, we have kept the faith, and we finished the rest. We are going to change this country, and we change it for the better. We are going to change this county under the stewardship of our incoming governor, who is before you, and it's going to be all systems go for the people of Bungoma, for the people of Kenya. We thank you. We want a peaceful election. We want a peaceful outcome, and we want those who win not to be exalted. We want those who lose not to be vanquished. We want to remain Kenyans.
Remember I told you IEBC is on standby. You get used to that standby. It's going to go on, not just tonight, it'll go on for a bit. And now we get to hear from our leaders, and that's going to go on for a bit also, but that's just how the election goes. We've heard from Esther, Ken Lusaka, Wetangula. Philip, anything of note?
We begin with Esther, and Esther was complaining about the KIMS kit not functioning. And I know IBC had guaranteed that I think there would be at least 4 KIMS kits within the polling station. And the KIMS kits were specifically geotagged to only operate within that polling station. So probably we've not had any official say that that was sorted out. I believe it was sorted out, and voting proceeded on swiftly. Moving to Lusaka and Wetangula, they just reaffirmed the processes I was talking about by the IEBC in case of not being able to be identified by the KIMS kit, and they were saying that much as some voters did not have their fingerprints, their biometrics picked up by the kit, that they proceeded on to the second tier of verification, where you're taking a photo with your ID card and filling Form 32A. So we have sort of these comments balanced out, but it will be interesting to see, keep seeing more comments come in, and what each person would have to say.
We know there are some leaders and some commentators who essentially just want to raise DEFCON levels. I don't want to be part of that. So if you ask me, I'd say IEBC is not firefighting right now. They're just going to give us updates. Do you see an issue that they really have to tackle right now?
So right now, the two main issues that we'll be tackling would be the transmission of the results from the polling stations, and having delays maybe in the counting, because as we know right now, there are so many places that are not yet connected to the grid, electricity, and maybe they are using gas cylinders that may run out. Maybe that is deliberate, and you'd want to have a temporary blackout, and what have you. So probably the issues would be to get the most accurate 34As from the polling station level.
But this they knew. So that's just ineptitude. Because by the time they went to your village to mark it, they knew what is lacking and what is needed. They knew there would be a network challenge here, but they would come back and still send people to vote. That's not right.
I mean, again, we are a progressive democracy, one. Two, economically, we are still not yet at a point where we can say that the country is fully connected to electricity, the country is fully connected to interconnectivity networks and all that. So some of this, we say the IBC has a mandate to administer elections throughout the country. And just by the mere fact that a polling station is within an area that has been neglected should not stop them from administering the election in that part.
Do you think they should refuse? Do you think they should say, go to the next station? What should IBC really do? Because they know that will be a problem. And it's not on them, really. They're not, so, like you said, and I agree, it's not on them to develop the country, infrastructure and all that. That's not their mandate. They're supposed to find people where they are and ask them, do you want to vote for Philip?
Yeah.
We'll allow you to do it, we'll enable you to do it. Do you think they should refuse?
I don't think they should refuse, because then you find, as I'd mentioned earlier, now you get instances of mobilization for people to go vote. And mobilization just simply means that you have to organize vans, maybe school buses to ferry people to the polling stations. You'll be having a challenge with the elderly, the sick who are at home, getting to these polling stations. So I think for them to refuse would be a great injustice to the citizenry, because then they'd be denied that opportunity to vote in the least painless possible way. I think they need to collaborate more with the national government and most definitely the incoming government to connect at least these polling stations, because they're very predictable, the primary schools, and the government has this data. So it would be very wise for them to at least collaborate and say, look, we have this number of polling stations. They're not going to be a surprise in 2027. So please, let us work on the infrastructure in order to have a seamless and flawless election in terms of electricity and in terms of network connectivity.
That argument alone defeats what we're saying in court right now, because what that says, humanly speaking, just in terms of being humane, in terms of what you say, they just need to go where the people are, then it's unfair to insist you have to go to digital voting. It can't work in the village.
No, I mean, again, the digital is really changing mankind.
But we are not achieving it, and not because we do not want. I don't think it's because IBC doesn't want, but they want to reach people. And I'm not saying I'm taking sides, but I'm just saying now the challenge is real. Because you go down to the village, there's no electricity, they can't get network. What are they supposed to do? Just in terms of the village, forget about what is in court and what people are saying. What is the rescue for them?
I mean, the rescue is that now, again, just collaborating with government in order to establish this infrastructure early in the day, if I may, so that we're not getting to the election period and we're now in the election year and the IBC is still complaining of the same issues that have been there. But again, as you know, the 2010 Constitution really introduced most of these new issues, and I feel like at some point we will definitely get there.
And what is the rescue for the voter now in the village? Away from this argument in the city, what do they do? When they go up to the station and they're told, you can't start, there's no network. So what does this villager do?
Yeah, so I've not been made aware of any person who's been turned away who was at the queue at by 5 p.m.
They're not turned away, but they just told we cannot start. Because I got those reports from the morning. People were telling me, we actually at the polling station, but they can't start.
Yeah, I mean,
there's no network.
There's a quote that goes something like, it does not matter how you start, but how you finish. So I'm pretty sure throughout the day, the activity picked up, and I'm yet to, maybe because I'm not very well connected through the country, but I'm yet to receive any report that actually voting didn't happen in this station or someone was turned away because the King's Kids failed totally.
Like we said, I don't want to raise DEFCON levels on that. That's why I said I think IBC right now, they're not really at firefighting mode. They will just give us updates, maybe start with the process.
Correct.
And maybe an achievement in terms of the polling stations that actually went on, perhaps not at 6 a.m., but they eventually got up to speed.
Correct. Yeah, so IBC right now, in terms of firefighting, they'd be very keen not to start that, because then that would also create
unnecessary tension.
Yeah, tension and panic throughout the country. So for now, we'll expect a lot of what you've just talked about, where mics will be up and we'll be told that officials are about to give an update. And these updates will continue throughout the country, throughout the night into tomorrow. I think until maybe Thursday or Friday. Yeah.
That mic is a reason for happiness, is a reason for sadness. The way they place it there, and you're just waiting to hear. Although at early days, early hours, I don't expect much. In terms of comparing us to our neighbors, perhaps, how would you rate Kenya in terms of water preparedness? Any country in the neighbors?
Yeah, I want to be very careful, because
don't pick one.
I don't want my visa.
Like we know, Kenya is well positioned internationally. Are we achieving that?
I know we're achieving.
Are we achieving that standard?
Yeah, I know we're achieving quite a lot compared to our neighbors. I've seen a conversation on Twitter today where Kenyans are making fun of a certain neighboring country, that they're very surprised that there's no internet shutdown and the election counting has begun in a country. And getting to that level where you'd be able to compare yourself, much as we are not yet there, but you'll be able to compare yourself with neighbors and say, look, we've put 1, 2, 3 in place, and we feel like it's working for us. We feel like government will just not arbitrarily maybe shut down the internet because candidate A is more favored by the state, and maybe there's an illegal there's a motive behind it. That just says a lot about us as a democracy.
So away from the noise, we actually do have some take-homes which are favorable.
Correct. So the first thing is maybe more education, more voter education. Then secondly, I would not say much into it, because again, you put Kenya and you look at the neighboring, most of the neighboring countries. You've had presidents who maybe have been there for quite a long time. So in Kenya, we're really adhering to that presidential term limit. You'd also have leaders who necessarily don't understand what their mandate maybe is in terms of legislation. When you look at Kenya, you look at the way parliament operates, you look at the new breed of members of parliament coming in, MCAs, people who are at least learned. I know the issue of degrees has been quite an issue. You'd look at where the controversy sort of began, that the degree is not a Kenyan degree, because Kenyan education system is a bit robust and a bit strict in its systems. And you'd find, not that I'm saying it's true or not, because it has never been proven, you'd find that these issues are emanating from a neighboring country. So if you were to put me in a corner and say takeaways from neighboring countries, as at this time, I don't think I
wouldn't worry about them. I'm looking at takeaways just for the Kenyan voter, because sometimes you get caught up in the noise and you get caught up in the people who are just trying to clear and say something went wrong. But there is more positive than there is negative out there.
So a very fast positive maybe would be experienced when now the final results come in, and a voter would be able to say, okay, I voted for this person, and maybe the general feeling, or maybe this is a candidate who gave his final pitch or her final pitch, and I really bought into what they were selling. I did my civic duty, I voted, and now they're in. Let me wait for what they promised within the next 5 years. Then secondly, I think for the longest time, the people known as Kenyans on Twitter, I think myself included, have always been accused of noisemakers on Twitter, but who failed to vote eventually. And it has been very encouraging to see that now most photos doing rounds on Twitter would be either the mark on your fingernail or in between the fingers. So you see that shift towards a more politically alert citizenry, and it would be a very good takeaway home.
Process is there, but just in terms of, we talked about making the final pitch, what do you make for this argument where people challenge and say, where is the manifesto? And we know very well, we don't vote on those grounds. Is that something we need to achieve, or is it something we know would be part of the political noise? The people will just vote for who they like.
Again, it all goes down to voter education and what I'd like to call punishing these candidates at the ballot. Because then 5 years ago, you can't keep coming back to us and telling us what you told us in 2017, in 2013. This road, if you give me this post, I will now build this road.
But we are known to have a very short memory.
I mean, again, now that, first of all, you started the CDF, moving away from the pockets of the MPs, we anticipate to have more action and less talk, because then your scorecard will be measured more on what you're able to achieve throughout your term rather than what you're able to dish out in terms of money. Because as we know, this CDF most of the time would be dished out in the last year in terms of projects, in terms of funding, whatever within the constituency, so as to have that impact on the voter of, this guy has really worked for us. You see, this has gone up because of him, this has gone up because of him, just to encourage that remembering of that during that final lap as we go and vote. So I feel like the legislators will now move more into doing the actual work, because that is all they'll be left with in terms of their scorecard eventually.
Do you think we need all these representatives? The number of MCAs we have, then we have to count the number of members of parliament, then we have to count a governor, then we have to count senators. Is Kenya that big? Do we need 47 counties, 47 governors? And we're talking of a budget that has gone into the Indian Ocean. Government itself is expensive. Do we, in your opinion, forget about who's there, but just in terms of numbers, do we need all these representatives?
No, I mean, I tend to think that we don't really need all of them, because there's a lot of, double representation. You look at...
Not forgetting there's women reps.
Yes, so you look at women representatives as members within the National Assembly. You look at senators who also serve counties. Then you look at MPs who serve constituencies within counties. And there's a lot of over-representation, in my opinion, in the sense that managing this at the minimum level you can would really move towards saving on a lot of costs, because these people come with offices, they come with budgets that really shoot up the Kenyan parliament's budget, or the government's budget eventually.
I think Parliament has lost its oomph. Parliament it's not as revered as it was before, because there's just too many people in there. And you deal with those, and then there's the MCAs. And why do we need all these MCAs? What is it they do that is so special? Don't worry who's there, just look at the MCA as a position. What is so special about having an MCA?
I think MCA level came to replace the councillors.
No, they just swapped names.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything that the chief cannot do.
To MCAs. And you look at the MCA is coming in to do the sort of lawmaking on behalf of the whole county. And we are saying the MCAs represent these people at the smallest level of the wards. And these are the people who would be more in touch with the people within the wards, which means that the probability of an MCA knowing who you are is higher than an MP. So I feel like they're necessary, because they really, they're like the last mile in terms of getting to the ground and understanding what are the people, who are the people and what do they need. But then again, does this translate to how they communicate it up the channel? Do they communicate exactly what the people need to the county assembly? How does the county assembly process this? Then what is the mandate of an MCA against an MP within the whole constituency, and all that? So it's a bit challenging. That's why I keep saying
we are just mystifying democracy in this country unnecessarily.
Correct.
And something we had talked about has already started to come up. Here's somebody, I do not know what you think of this candidate, but Wajakoya has something to say.
Slowly. One more time.
Habari zinazotufikia saa hizi kutoka kwa County Returning Officer ni kwamba ameturuhusu tutumie manual register kwa sababu ya shida tuko nayo ya KEMS-KIT. Kwa hivyo nawaomba tupige foleni, tupige kura kutumia manual register.
That in itself is a petition pending. But I'm also not sure whether he has petitioned the Supreme Court. I don't know. And as a lawyer, I have not been put on notice whether that has happened. But this is uncouth, this is unpredictable, this is inhuman, it's degrading, broad daylight theft of the people of Western and my followers in particular, stealing votes from us as it has happened today. You know that people are very poor in my area here where I was born. This is a school that was built in my grandfather's land. And the only thing I want to know is that the people who came here at 6, the old ones, the frail ones, the sick ones, where are they? Hii ni kunipunguzia kura. Hii ni kuninyang'anya kura. Na wakifikiria kwamba ataendelea kutufanya namna hii, sisi tutaendelea na umaskini yetu pande hii. Hatutaki vitu zao za bure. To reach where we have reached, the journey continues regardless or irrespective of the outcome. It's a long journey that we have started today. Those who thought that I was a project, shame on you. Yes. Na sisi tunataka kupanda bangi. Yes. Hii area yote itakuwa inapanda bangi. Mambo ati nivae suti nikae hapo. Yes. Tumekataa. Let me not deviate from. Yes. Hii kura nimenyang'anywa. Yes. Na nimenyang'anywa hii kura kusudi. Tumeona. Maana Kakamega County especially Matungu. Yes. Kwa nini? Na fail. Wakati wengine ma presidential candidate kama Raila alikuwa anakimbizwa huko kama mwizi. Mbio vote here. Mbona mimi serikali haijakuja kunikimbiza asubuhi? Makosa. Sio ni makosa? Kabisa. Hapa Matungu wameharibu kabisa na parts of Kakamega County. Wanasema ya kwamba hiyo kit ambayo jina yangu ilikuwa ndani imekataa kufunction.
Well, I have a duty to put that out there. I don't know if it is the pain or the beauty of democracy. You decide. I have my own decision. I'm not going to get into that, Philip. Maybe I know too much about certain people, so I don't want to do that now. Like I'm saying, I don't want to go into DEFCON mode just yet. Let's just do the process for now. There'll be time for that. I'll deal with that in due time. We were talking about something else. We were talking about preparedness, and we were talking about experiences. We were talking about now the question of what do we do down on the village when there's a failure of system. Voters rescue.
I feel like IBC had already communicated on that should the KEMS-KIT fail and the second tier of verification through the KEMS-KIT fail, then the manual register, as I have been made aware, has been utilized in some regions. I think that is what probably Wajaka was using. I'm not very certain about that. But of course, I know I said earlier that the manual register was not necessary. It should only be employed in those...
just as a backup?
Yes, not necessarily as a backup, because the backup is the Form 32A that you fill
the
when
famous forms again.
Yeah, but the manual register should also still be approved at the very top level, such that they understand that technology has completely and totally failed. Yep.
Well, we are looking at the take-homes, we are looking at the positives now. We are still not in the firefighting mode, and we're looking at lessons to learn from this. What about expectancy? the people were expecting way too much of the people they're going to vote in. What do you think about the things you've heard? What do you hear people talking about in terms of what they expect from the leaders they're voting in? Is it realistic?
So again, not very realistic, because someone is voting in an MP and they're on the queue and they're saying, let me give this guy my vote. When I go and ask him for bursary, should he dare deny me that? And you're just thinking about the budgets for bursaries and what have you, that they cannot adequately sustain the whole constituency if each person voting wants to enjoy that. And secondly, of course, they won't just be coming to meet you for you to give them a bursary. Of course, I'd want kitu kidogo, facilitation. I've come here with a motorbike, I've used a matatu, so can I get my fare back home? And you look at the expectation of Mheshimiwa or a member of parliament, MCA, whoever, is that first of all you need to have, you need to be rich, you need to have money. And not money that you are going to maybe make as an MCA or MP, but you just need to have money so that when you meet these guys on the road, the occasional 50 shillings, 100 shillings is at their disposal. So the expectations are not very realistic, if I may so
They
say.
really are not. And then even just looking at the city, you don't expect there'll be a leader, even at the level of president, to sort out your bad manners, to sort out your discourteousness, to sort out your misbehavior, whether in the places you live or the places your children go to school. We're heaping this on leaders. Is that right?
It's not really right, because I know one of the gubernatorial candidates in Nairobi was probably caught in some lounge during the COVID period, and everyone was like, oh, how could he's in this lounge, or why is he doing this, he's a leader, he should be responsible. While in fact, these Kenyans were tweeting from maybe the very same lounge or some other different lounge, and it is just because they are not public figures that this did not get out there. So I feel like a lot of our morality is still anchored on the leadership of the country, and they have a responsibility to shape it, especially for the younger generation, because again, these are the leaders of tomorrow, the voters of today, but the leaders of tomorrow.
But we want so much, we want answers. We even want to know what cabinet discussed. And then the argument that has arisen is Kenya was given too much democracy after 2010. It was too much, more than they could handle at a time. And now that is why there's all this confusion and all these arguments and all these measures on the leaders that are unrealistic and expectations from government that are unrealistic. People want to see signed papers from cabinet. The government doesn't run like that.
Yeah, of course. There is the oath of secrecy when you are in such spaces within cabinet, especially the sensitive departments such as security, Ministry of Interior. And so much as the people would want to be asking for that, I feel like we have bestowed trust on these leaders through our votes, and we need to let them be accountable to us at the ballot, because once we are done with the ballot, then we sort of almost lose any power for the next 5 years, unless you're talking about instances of recalling an MP. Then you look at the whole procedure again. It's very tedious. So we need to be very careful at the time of granting these people offices, because for the next 5 years, it will be sort of almost impossible for them to get out of that office just because we feel like they need to be out.
Too much democracy without due process to measure it to. The tax collector, the main guy, the main tax collector in this country, actually said at one time, that is why you have the power of the vote. You vote because this government collects your money, we collect your tax, and we give it to them. If you don't like them, that is why you vote. I think this education hasn't quite landed.
Yeah, I mean, the pinch is not really being felt, but I feel like in the past, is it 4 or 5 months, with the increase in fuel prices, which have caused a ripple effect across daily household commodities such as oil, sugar, salt, has really made the common wananchi feel that, okay, wait, we are being taxed, and this tax contributes to whatever cost we pay for fuel. So we need to be careful who we put in there, because this tax legislation have been put in place by people we have elected. So I feel like the message is not at home, but people have started to realize that there's a direct consequence on who you put in there as a leader.
But this doesn't measure the same level, because that argument may be in the city, it may be with the people who can access the media you access. Did you find it in Kakamega?
Not that Kakamega is very, very remote and very... but
Kakamega has a governor.
Yeah, it does, and it'll be there for a while, even
an
after...
MP, and an MCA to boot.
Correct, yeah, and I feel like the people of Kakamega have exercised their right today to do just that. I hope they've made the right decision to boot whoever they
but
think.
It's dangerous to exercise this right everybody's talking about, my democratic right, and you don't understand what it means to have this right. It's not just about yelling at the top of your voice on election day. There's more to it. Do you understand your taxes? Do you understand what it means that in a democracy you're actually sending Philip because you trust him, and then you have to let him work? You can't be in his office every day.
Every day. So I feel like CBC, and again, I don't want to open a Pandora's box, but I feel like...
don't worry, I won't go there.
I feel like CBC had a very great opportunity to actually start this at those levels. Just to make sure that as students grow up, they understand that first of all, you're governed by a government. And this government is tiered into these positions. And these positions are for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Such that as they grow, they understand that an MP is not there to dish out cash. Because you see, these kids will be on the roads, maybe playing on holiday or whatever, when this MP is passing. So when he dishes out 50 shillings and occasionally gives 2, 3 kids 100 shillings, this kid grows up knowing that an MP is a person who is a walking ATM. So they're 18, they're 20, they're 25. If Mheshimiwa does not mobilize and give us something for the youth or something for the women, then there's a bad person, we're not voting for them. So I feel like it needs to start from that very level. Awareness for the older folks right now, I think when they make a decision on who to vote, you're definitely not changing that decision. So let's start at that very small level, at the primary school level, and let them grow up understanding that this is the mandate of the president, the deputy president, and should the constitution change, let this be communicated to them. Let them understand that this is happening because of 1, 2, 3.
You need to understand why you're voting. Let's take a break. We'll talk about that more when we come back.